Hi guys, welcome back to another review, and this time around I'm bringing you the IVPIQ Shanhai. I believe that's how you say it. This is the latest IEM from IVPIQ, a triple driver IEM. Um, by the name, it's supposedly the updated version of the original Shanhai, which is this one over here, which is also a triple driver. The difference is the original had 3 dynamic drivers. This one now has 2 dynamic drivers and a flat planar, micro planar driver, if you want to put it that way, of 6 millimeters. That's a driver configuration very similar to what we find, for example, in the TRN White Tiger, the TRN Shell, where they have that triple coaxial or triaxial in this case driver that has a 10, an 8 and a 6 millimeter driver. This is basically the same sort of driver. From what it is, my understanding, it is an updated version of that driver, and that's basically the most information I was able to gather around it. Obviously, then the shell is different, and the way they've tuned the IEM is also different to what we see in TRN. Although, truth be told, when you listen to one and the other, there is a similarity. There is a certain style which is very similar. But anyway, this is not about the TRN, the shell, or the White Tiger, or whatever. This is about the IVPIQ Shanhai Plus, and I took the opportunity, since I had, I'd be talking about the Shanhai Plus, to kind of bring out some of the other models that I've tested from IVPIQ, which I believe have been kind of like the standouts. They initially came to the IEM world in the form of a single dynamic driver, very similar to the QE's cadenza, and I'm talking about this particular IEM here, for example. Okay, but this is the latest version of that IEM. This is the 2025 version of it, and this was the initial IEM that they launched. IVPIQ, for those that don't know, IVPIQ, XI, NHS, and ZSIN basically are all under the same umbrella. And that particular single DD was actually a pretty decent single DD. I mean, I guess the biggest obstacle that it had was the fact that because it came from a brand which was known for its cables and had absolutely no experience in IEMs, that created some obstacle in terms of people wanting to buy the IEM, since there were, other brands which were more established in the IEM market that would obviously have more experience. But anyway, the truth is, the IVPQ 100, which is this one here, was and is a pretty decent single DD. Yeah, of course, at the price which it's placed at, it's got a monumental amount of competition. And ultimately, I think the person that will buy it will be not because it's going to find a performance which is above the other offerings, but I think it will be because they are brand loyal. That's a reality. But anyway, this was one of them. But of the rest, there are specific models here which I believe really stood out. On the left hand corner here, I've got IVPIQ Conch V11, which is an 8BA IEM. They have since updated this to a 10BA. I haven't tested that. It's one of the very few IEMs that I actually haven't tested. But from what I've seen, people that did test it, I believe the 8BA is still probably the better one. Or at least it sounds like the one that has the most coherence of all the drivers, and ultimately will sound a little bit more balanced, let's put it that way. So we have the IVPIQ 11. We obviously have here the Shanhai. It was one of the IEMs that when I first listened to it, I was really impressed because it reminded me of the Panon serial. And that's one of my favorite IEMs that I have in my collection, a triple dynamic driver as well. This one had, or has, a 10mm driver, and then has another 10mm coaxially mounted with a 6mm dynamic driver. So it's 2 10s and a 6mm. We then have here the Phoenicia, which is a 1+6 that they launched last year. A really solid 1+6. I have to, the credit has to be given. A really phenomenal sounding OnePlus 6. Again, I think the biggest problem that the Phoenicia encountered was that it was going up against some serious contenders in the market of that same configuration or of around the same price. But nonetheless, one of the best IEMs that they have. On the end here, I've got the V12, the Conch V12, which is a 2 dynamic driver and 6 BAs, which was actually launched at the same time as the V11. Again, a really incredible IEM. Okay, incredible IEM with a very nice tuning. I mean, very well done. Actually, these three here, the last one is this in the Vermilion Flame, 1+2. These three have a very similar style of tuning, which is they try and keep things very much, I would say, bending towards the neutral end of the neutrality kind of presentation. I mean, the Vermilion, for example, everything sits here within. I'm trying to look at the graphs so I can actually convey better. But the Vermilions, everything sits within the meat and potatoes of the frequency response sits within a window of around 7.5 dBs. Okay, so it's a more of a neutral presentation, and it absolutely is an incredible IEM. Honestly, the Vermilion was one of the IEMs that I listened to last year that truly impressed me, especially when you're taking consideration it's a 1+2. It's really hits the nail on the head. Very nice IEM, and the thing is, obviously IVPIQ being a brand which is not focused on IEMs is not their core business, the prices will inevitably be a little bit higher than what you would maybe get in similar configurations from other brands. The reality is they all bring a really nice cable. Okay, that's the first thing. And the build quality is very high, and they are currently actually manufacturing their own IEMs. They used to outsource that manufacturing process, but they now are actually in manufacturing in-house, which I think it's a testament that they saw that they had enough talent that justified them actually going down that road. And who knows, maybe even perhaps provide that service for third parties. So the Vermilion, again, a really nice IEM from them. These three have a very similar style of sound, like I said, like a neutralish kind of sound. The V11, the All BA, and the original Shanhai, it's a thicker sound, a more organic type of sound with big bass. And the new Shanhai Plus kind of takes cues from both of these tuning styles. It's not overly neutral, but it's not overly, let's say, warm. And the presentation that comes out of it is, it's a little bit on the V-shaped, I'm not going to deny, but the fact that they've actually been able to somehow find a balance in terms of that V-shapedness actually makes it sound pretty interesting. I'm not going to deny, I did have to play around with the tips a little bit, and the spin fits, these ones were the CP145s, I believe these are, were the tips that actually managed to work the best, at least in my ears. With this setup of these tips, it works and it sounds really good. It sounds really good. Anyway, let's delve into the sound of the actual Shanhai Plus a little bit more in detail, so I can kind of convey better what I'm talking about. In terms of the bass, yes, it's a big bass, but the graph doesn't actually reflect the reality. And what I mean by that is, when I show you the graph, you will see that we are talking about a gain or an operating range in the bass of around 11 dBs, which you would think, okay, this is going to have monstrous amounts of bass. And no, it's a clean, it's an impactful bass, not as sub-bass focused as, again, the graph will show you when I'll show it to you. And then, of course, you also have a pinna gain of approximately 10 dBs. And that pinna gain of approximately 10 dBs does then dictate that you have maybe perhaps this small kind of V-shaped signature. However, because they've let's say pushed the mids forward slightly, and I mean the 100 hertz point corresponds to roughly 1.4, 1.5. What it means is that they have been able to fill out the mids, the vocals, in a way that they don't sound scooped or lacking compared to the bass and to the treble. And ultimately then the presentation or the sound that comes out of it is let's say a neutralish type of presentation, which is very energetic. So bass is clean, it's detailed, it's not as deep as the graph will show you, but it goes deep enough. It's able to rumble plenty. But that's not, I mean, it's not with the, I don't think it's per se the bass that's the star of the show, or then the mids or the highs. I think it's just the way that they've been able to match those different parts of the frequency spectrum in order to give us a sound which is then very engaging. It's a really engaging sound. Mids, they are fun, they are engaging, they sound a little bit colored, but it's all been done in a very nice manner. When I say it's a neutralish bright, this is what I'm trying to say. They are neutral to a certain extent in the way they are, but there are occasions where you notice that those mids are a little bit pushed, but the way that they've then again pushed it is in a manner which makes it engaging and fun, and gets you going. The highs, they are clean, the detail, the fact that they've actually got then, like I said, a microplanar there could maybe be a reason for concern. Is the high is going to be harsh, aggressive, or anything? There is a peak at around 4.5 that initially before I did some tip rolling, I was picking up a little bit on it, especially when I started pushing the volume. But after I changed to the spin fits and obviously also I guess made a little bit more brain burn, I got used to it and it didn't really bother me. So overall, what I can say about the Shanhai Plus is that it's a very fun kind of neutralish presentation that has some moments where its coloredness it's nice, it's an engaging, it's a satisfying type of coloredness that it has, but somehow they've pulled it off and made that the different part of the spectrums are very nicely matched, and it's very engaging to listen to the Shanhai Plus as compared to the original Shanghai. The sound is cleaner. It's a more open sound, definitely, without question. The original was is significantly thicker in that mid bass area, which does to a certain extent then kind of I wouldn't say muddle or make the mids muffled. No, it just gives a more organic type of sound. Again, there's a certain degree of coloredness to that extra energy that they've given in that mid bass section, but the overall presentation again it's a very nicely balanced presentation. That 100 hertz point corresponds to roughly 3 kilohertz, and there's a nice balance obtained between the two spectrums. Actually, looking at the graph of the original Shanhai, it looks nice apart from that thickness in the bass. It's a nice looking graph. It's a graph that I think will appeal to a lot of people. Obviously, having that amount of bass then does mean that in terms of technicalities, twinkles, all the twinklies and sparkles will suffer a little bit. They're not as open and as noticeable, symbols and so on. They will suffer a little bit compared to the rest, or some of the other IEMs, especially compared to the Shanhai Plus. There's a definite, you notice the difference. But the reality is this. This is an IEM that costs roughly $75, and the performance that it offers is, in my opinion, extremely solid, very engaging. And if you like an organic, old school type of presentation, the Shanhai is an absolutely incredible IEM. Mind you, it is absolutely incredible. Of course, if you're a little bit bass adverse and so on and so forth, then there are other options, definitely. But that the Shanhai is a properly tuned IEM that is engaging and sounds very musical within that, let's say, excess that it has in terms of the bass, without a question, that is. as compared to its newer brother, the Shanhai Plus. It's like I said, this is a more detailed, this is more technically orientated, more balanced. Ultimately, it doesn't have that thickness in the mid bass, and also offers those more forward mids, which make for a more open sound, more twinkles, more detailed in terms of resolution, a better sound stage, slightly better imaging. Technically, it's a more capable IM than the Shanhai. I wouldn't say it's an upgrade, to be honest with you, because they have such different approaches to the way they do sound. I think they both make sense. Okay, they are both, I would say they are rather a side grade to each other than necessarily an upgrade. I actually, to be honest, and I understand why they called it the Shanhai Plus, because again, 3 drivers and they wanted to continue that. But I think it wouldn't have been a bad idea to have actually named it something completely different. I think it would straight away not potentiate this tendency of wanting to say that it's now better than the old model and the old model is obsolete or anything else. No, it isn't. As compared, taking out the Shanhai Plus and comparing it to the others, I mean, yes, it's got a little bit more detail, definitely a little bit more detail than the IVPIQ, the V11. But I think the way that the V11 again was tuned was purposely done in this manner to be an IEM that, being all BA, can suffer from those BA negativities, which is that excessiveness in terms of sibilance or harshness when the volume starts getting pushed. And no, I mean, it's when I show you the graph, you'll understand. It's not an overly warm presentation, but the way that they've been able to tune it, it kind of sounds very like one single DD there, period. It's got that kind of vibe. Maybe they could have given it just a little bit more energy. But when I show you the graph, you'll see exactly what I mean. But I mean a little bit more energy. I mean a little bit more energy in terms of the mids, so to make the vocals a little bit more alive. So again, I wouldn't say that this is better. This is just more detailed than that. But they both complement each other really well. As compared now here to the Phoenicia, the V12, and then the Vermilion, the Flame. I think the one that will probably comes closest to the Shanhai Plus is actually the Vermilion. Funny enough, it's not like there's a monumental difference, but it's the one that probably tries to emulate a little bit better that more kind of balanced sound, that balanced colored neutral-ish kind of sound that we get here. I think this is the one that does it the best. It's also very neutral-ish, and there's a lot more detail. There's a lot more technicalities and twinkles and sparkles than what the graph might lead you to believe, definitely. And that's why I think they sound, although the graphs are nothing like each other, they are the ones that I think sound the most alike. Not that the Phoenicia is monumentally different. No, it isn't. I mean, but when once you've spent a little bit of time, like I did, going back and forth, you end up seeing that no, it is the one that actually does come the closest in terms of having the most similar type of sound. And when you actually look at the graph, you'll see why I'm saying that. You'll understand why. The V12 node, it sounds, you notice that you can pick the difference between the two out very, very easily, especially noticeable more in the higher frequencies. You can definitely pick it up. I mean, it's not a difficult thing to notice. And as for the Phoenicia, I would probably say it's the second one that comes the closest to the sound of the Shanhai Plus. Where maybe the Phoenicia loses out a little bit is because it doesn't have the same sort of forwardness in the bass. It sounds a little bit more laid back in the vocals as compared to the Shanhai Plus. But look, again, guys, this isn't about this one is better, this one loses. No, it's about how it kind of integrates, or it kind of sits in this universe of IEMs from IVPIQ, in that these ones that I have here in front, and I've only not tested the new 10BA, I haven't tested the Aura as well, and I believe, yeah, those are the only two that I haven't tested from them. The Aura, I'm going to try and see if I can get my hands on it and test it soon. because that's gonna be an interesting IM. It's a 2+5, so that should be an interesting IM. But these of the universe of IVPIQ IEMs are definitely, in my opinion, the best ones, are the ones that deserve, more attention. Again, I'm not going to say that the single DD isn't good. No, the single DD is good. I just find that there are other options out there at the same price point, or a little bit more expensive, or maybe even perhaps a little bit cheaper, that do the same thing and are they're engaging. They offer you more. Okay. And these ones, no. I mean, this 8BA version that they had, yeah, was a phenomenal IM. Honestly, phenomenal IM. This came out around the same time as the QE, as the Orchestra Lite. So you had yeah, a more organic type of presentation, more musical, while in the Orchestra Lite maybe a little bit more details. The Shanhai, I've said enough about it. It's incredible IM, incredible, really, really, really good. The Vermilion, again, the same situation. For a 1+2, it has no business to sound this good. That's the honest. And the Phoenicia, again, solid 1+6, has very much got the vibes to a certain extent of something like the Mega 7 from High Senior, although the Mega 7 has more polished up top. The up top presentation is more polished. It's more detailed. I think that on purpose they held back the BAs here to as well not showcase maybe any aggressiveness or any BA timbre which would spoil things. And basically the same thing goes there for the V12 as well. Out of the ones that are here, the ones that are still available now that you can get are the Phoenicia, the Vermilion, obviously the Shanhai Plus, and the Shanhai, and all the single ED as well. These two are no longer available; they discontinued. So I just had them here because they again represent a milestone in IVPIQ's evolution and in terms of IEMs and what they offer. Guys, show you quickly the graph and we'll wrap it up. Okay guys, so let's talk graphs now. Alright, I'm going to start off with the graph for the Shanhai Plus. And as I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's a graph that you look at it and, okay, it's not offensive. There's nothing that's offensive. I think the takeaway here is that you'll perhaps think, oh, it's going to have a lot of bass, a little bit of thickness in the bass, and the mids maybe are a little bit overly forward, and maybe some shout or something of the sort. But no, once you actually start listening to the IEM and you've done that tip selection, what you are greeted with is a sound which is actually surprisingly balanced. That's 100 hertz point, like I said, as well, corresponds to about 1.4 roughly. But the energy that's there and the energy that's behind here, actually they match out each other pretty decently. And so there's no real Venus, there's no excessive scoop in the mids, sounding a little bit thin or anything of the sort. No, it actually sounds pretty decent. It's a little bit colored, like I said at times, but overall I would say it's a neutralish kind of presentation, although the graph doesn't look at it like a neutralish, energetic neutralish kind of presentation, if that would in any way makes sense. I'm trying to find the best way to explain. Compared, for example, to the original Shanhai, you can see the difference straight away. The original Shanhai way more thick here in the mid bass section. I mean, when I take here the 100 hertz point, you can see it completely overpowers the mids, upper mids, and treble. But again, this doesn't tell the whole story. Yes, it's a warm representation. It loses out a little bit in terms of details and so on and so forth, but it's a very, very musical IM. I think that's the takeaway for the original Shanhai, is that it's a very musical IM, while the new Shanhai Plus is kind of a fun, energetic, neutralish type of presentation. Okay, it's musical, but it's a fun, I think, is the factor here, the main aspect of the Shanhai Plus. All right, compared then to the others, for example, here number 20, that's the V11, the All BA. And you can see a certain similarity in the way that I've tuned it. This is the peak here around 4.5 on both, same sort of bass curve, and actually the bass does sound very similar, especially because you have this significantly reduced mids, upper mids, and treble energy level as compared to that. I mean, the mids, for you to understand, we're talking about everything sitting within roughly a 4 dB band. Okay, the 100 hertz point there, significantly more energetic than the mids, upper mids, and treble. But this is an all BA, so ultimately what this sounds like is, yes, warm, musical, and again the V11 is a very musical IM, especially when you consider it's an all BA IM, and no sibilance, no aggressiveness, nothing in terms of that BA typical characteristic. Okay, so that's that one gone. Number 21, this is actually the IVPIQ, the 100, the single DD, and as you can see, you know, again, it's not an offensive type of signature. You would maybe be led to believe that there's an extreme amount of bass, but no, it's got plenty bass, but it's actually surprisingly balanced. And that's one thing that's, you know, that impresses me about IVPIQ, is that they are always somehow able to get away with certain things which would maybe kind of be no-goes, and it's down to obviously not only talent on the part of the engineers and the you know, the acoustic engineers they are using that, but also testament that maybe just maybe they actually are using better than normal drivers, because if this was a poor quality driver, you wouldn't be able to get the sound that you ultimately get out of it. Okay, so that's the single DD. All right, and now let's compare it with the hybrids, the two, the 1+6, the 2+6, and the 1+2. We'll start off here with the Phoenicia. Okay, 1+6, and again, same sort of bass, and bass wise sounds very similar. You just notice is that the Phoenicia is a little bit more recessed here in this mids to upper mids, more kind of meta, if you see that little kink there. The 100 hertz point corresponds to just over 2 kilohertz, but the bass that you have versus what you have on top there, it shifts the sound towards more of a more warmer presentation, but still maintaining enough of that balance, of that neutrality, to not be in any way overly dark or anything of the sort. Okay, this next one that I've shown you, and I'm actually going to change the color, make it red. Okay, this is actually the vermilion, the vermilion, and again you can see a lot of similarities in terms of how the bass energy and how it's done, and how then the mids, upper mids, and treble are done as well. Very similar, very similar. And I think the main takeaway again here for the vermilion is a very musical presentation in its, let's say, neutrality. It's a very musical IM. That's, I think, the main thing. I would even go as far as saying that probably the Vermilion Flame, the original Shanhai, and the Phoenicia are probably the most musical ones of this whole bunch here. There's not a lot of difference between them, and it's not like they are way more musical than the rest, but these will probably be the ones that will stand out just a smidge more in terms of the musicality. And then finally the V12, the 2+6, that although, you know, kind of similar-ish in terms of what you get here from the others. Okay, vermilion. Let me just change the color of the conch, the V12, into black. Make it black. So if you actually look at the vermilion and the V12, they've got a very similar style of tuning. The vermilion, in my opinion, is just more well done in the mids and upper mids, just more polished. Although it's got less drivers, it's just more polished there. And when you listen to it, it sounds really good. It sounds solid. Guys, and that's basically it. I think there's nothing really more that I can say. The Shanhai Plus, in my opinion, has ticked the right boxes to make it a solid IM. I know that they are running a promotion now over the coming couple of days, that they will offer a really nice cable as part of the deal that they are giving. So look, have a look. Yes, we're talking $150 plus or minus, give or take. So it's money. There's a lot of other IEMs at that price point, without a doubt. But I think, honestly, considering that you didn't get that extra cable, which is a really nice cable, priced at around $90 extra, and you already have a decent cable, you know, you got two cables, the IM, the value is there. Ultimately, I think the value is there. I will say, however, that yes, do play around with tips. Tips are something that you will have to play around. Try the spin fits. I got the best performance with the spin fits and with the Venus Velvet. So try those tips, and I'm positive you won't be disappointed. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.